As I said in my previous video, where I reviewed the core set of the Attack Wing, I want to tell you more about the expansions of the system, because they're really vital. They're really what makes this game shine. The core set needs some extra expansions, but when you add the expansions that you can find out there for the system, then the variety of gameplay, the subtleties and the nuances of gameplay become mind-blowing, and they make this one, so to me, vastly superior to Star Wars X-Wing. And I'm saying this, I believe, just because of mechanical superiority of gameplay, not simply because the theme, the fantasy theme, appeals greatly to me, and much more than the Star Wars theme does. So in this video I'm going to show you the expansions that are available for the system right now. I'm going to divide the video in three main sections. First, I'm going to show you the dragons and the giants, which means large individual units. Then I'm going to show you small individual units, and finally I'm going to show you a type of unit that I hadn't seen before, which is called the troop, and which is a group of small units acting in a coordinated fashion as a single unit. It's going to be a long video because I want to cover all of the expansions that are out there and that I own, mainly for your convenience, so that you can have all the information in a single place. But I'm gonna prepare an index for this video, so that if you're interested in the future in just checking what that unit does, what that expansion does, how that expansion may play before you pick it up, then you have the information right there. You do not have to go around and look for the specific video. So I apologize in advance for the long video. If you want to watch it all, well then, thank you for the patience and for the time that you're taking watching my work, but I'm creating this video also as a reference tool for you for the future. Without further ado, let's start taking a look at some of these expansions. Let's start by taking a look at the big creatures that are available as expansions for D&D Attack Wing. Here we have the Green Dragon, pretty detailed miniature, pretty scary looking fellow. I love the fact that these miniatures are painted, so I do not have to paint them myself, which I wouldn't be able to do anyways. The maneuver card for the Green Dragon tells us that this is a pretty agile dragon. It has this maneuver here that not all dragons have, that allows him to move backwards. Makes it pretty tricky. The opponent may be trying to maneuver around you, hoping to get behind you as you would move forward, while you move backwards, and now you're right in the position to attack the opponent, and the opponent is in your forward arc and maybe not even in a position to attack you back. Really sweet. As for the abilities, well, the normal unnamed Green Dragon has fairly good stats, a good selection of actions, but it is the named Green Dragon which really is cool, because it has better stats. And look at the ability here. All opposing creatures in your forward arc roll, so the ones you're looking at, the ones that you are facing directly, have -1 attack when attacking you. So you have such a charismatic and strong personality that discourages people from attacking you. Or is it charisma? I don't know, because Green Dragons also have this special ability that they can equip, which is derision. You can spend an action, you can spend your action for the turn to execute this special action here, which is you target a creature at range 1 or 2 in your forward arc who is a lower level than you. The creature receives an exhaustion token. Ha ha ha. You're so derisive. They feel bad about themselves. They feel exhausted. Like, you know when people say, your humor makes me feel exhausted? That's exactly what happens here. Silver Dragon. This is one scary dragon. It's absolutely terrifying. As for movement, it can move pretty far. It doesn't have the maneuver that allows him to move backwards. It's one big dude. 5 in attack, like the red dragons have, but 7. This is even more resistant than the red dragon in the core set. Very tough skin with 2 points of armor and a decent range of actions. And then you have the named version. Well, if you're playing by build with Legion points, you're building your Legion, this is a huge investment. But look at the beast that you get. You get a beast with 5 points of attack and 9 life points. This is the most survivable creature I've seen so far in the system. It's absolutely scary and very thin skin. skin. It's almost no way that a regular hit is going to go through this skin here. After Vaka moves, she may choose one other friendly creature within range 1 or 2, and the creature immediately performs an action. So actually, the presence of this terrifying creature is such, actually, her friends feel reassured, or they get benefit anyways, and they can get extra actions. She herself can perform decent actions. Also look at the range of the tail. It is range 3. It is unusual for dragons to be able to attack that far with a melee attack, but the silver dragon can. The black dragon, this is a sneaky dragon because it's black and blends in very well in dimly lit environments. As for maneuvers, it has good maneuvers, including this maneuver that I like very much. There is a card that has a reference card for things that happen thanks to the shadow trait that black dragons have, and it pretty much tells you that they're particularly sneaky when indeed playing in the darkness, in adventures and scenarios where there's much light, scenarios for example that take place outside at night. The regular dragon is an overall well-rounded dragon, pretty agile, with the shadow trait, lots of possible actions. And the named better version of the dragon, this is something I like super very much. This dragon rolls +1 attack die whenever he attacks a creature that does not have him in its forward arc. So pretty much you're sneaky, so if the opponent is not looking at you, the opponent doesn't have you in their forward arc, you're, for example, coming from the side, then your attack is particularly effective and inflicts, and you use an extra attack die. Then we have the Frost Giant, big and scary, definitely a ground creature, doesn't fly, and so only has a ground maneuver. I should have mentioned, but of course flying creatures also have another maneuver card. Well, the opposite side of the flight maneuver card is the ground side, is the ground version. The giant only has that. The symbol here means to pivot. The creature can stay in place and simply turn. Can move pretty far. May not be particularly agile, but it has long legs. It's a giant after all. In fact, as you can see from the agility value, that the giants are not very agile. They're not very good at dodging, but they have fairly thick skin, very good amount of life points, and they can hit pretty heavy, and they have a good range in their forward arc because they throw rocks. However, as you can see, they only have a forward arc as opposed to the dragons that have a forward and a rear arc. These are both forward. It simply changes the type of attack that you're using. The arc is the same, but there may be game effects that apply to one attack and not the other. And that's when that comes into play. As for the name version, it is a little better at dodging attacks. Also, it has this ability which tells you that when you spend a charge token, the token that you receive from this action, you may choose to use the 2 template instead of the 1 straight template. When you're performing the charge action, you use the short template to get an extra move forward to effectively and actually perform the charge. This Frost Giant can actually use the 2 straight template, which means his charges are a little longer, they can cover more ground. Other than that, the other stats are the same. Now let's take a look at some smaller individual units. We have the Wyvern, everybody's favorite mini dragon or flying snake, whichever way you want to see it. The Wyvern has good maneuverability, can fly, can go fast and fly up to 4. In the unnamed version, it is an okay creature. It has a powerful attack, good defense, a decent armor, but not particularly good at dodging attacks. It becomes pretty interesting in the named version because then we have better stats, of course, a little more agile, but also we have this ability here. Instead of attacking normally, Blackthorn may make 1 bite attack and 1 tail attack. So if you're playing a quote-unquote dogfight, Blackthorn versus another character, then this ability is not that interesting. But if you are fighting against multiple enemies, you send Blackthorn in the midst of the crowd, and then Blackthorn can launch a lot of attacks quite fast against multiple enemies. Also, it can equip a lot of upgrades. The Harpy. The Harpy, maybe one of them is not that scary, but the Harpy is a creature that can do interesting damage if you invest in purchasing 3 or even 4 of them. You can have a storm of Harpies. So you can see the Harpy is very agile. It has this tricky maneuver here. It is able to reverse course quite easily while flying. And the unnamed version, as I said, is pretty cheap, but also not particularly powerful, still decently agile. Not great strength when attacking, but here is the good thing. It has a pretty good range. So a creature that flies that fast, that swiftly, and can attack from a distance can be particularly annoying to the enemy, especially if you have several that you use to shower the opponents with your little arrows. Sycorax is the named version, and it has this ability here on top of having better stats. If Sycorax inflicts at least 1 damage against a creature with her first claw attack, she may immediately make a second claw attack against the second creature. But the claw attack, as you can see, has a very short range, so you need to be pretty close to be able to use this attack. But if you manage to do so, then you get 2 attacks, which is pretty neat. And you still have the very good long range attack. After the bad guys, we have some good guys. Here is the Movanic Diva Angel. Diva? D-E-V-A. With this mighty hammer justice. The angel flies fast, far, and can pivot in air, which not all flying creatures can do. In the unnamed version, it has a good flying unit with good stats, good range of abilities, and good range of attacks. An overall well-rounded creature. In the named version, it has the ability which allows him to spend actions to remove face-down damage cards from himself or from other friendly creatures at range 1. That is, he can heal friends and he can heal himself. Also, there is a special ability that only angels or paladins can equip that comes with that creature. With this expansion, I mean. The wizard, the sun elf wizard. The miniature is pretty neat. The fact that she is making sort of like ball of fire and energy. It's usually a ground creature, but you can equip the wizard with a spell that makes the wizard fly, and then you have a maneuver card for a flying wizard. The standard version is very cheap, also not particularly impressive per se, very low combat values and melee range, but you can equip some spells. So if you just want a bag to carry around some spells in the battlefield, you may consider the Elven Spellcaster. The named version is better because, while still having this, can equip much more stuff. So if you're willing to invest more points in giving good spells and other items to the elf, then it can really be interesting because it can cast a lot of powerful stuff. Also, each of your arcane spell upgrades costs -1 Legion points, so it's particularly easy to equip good stuff on this character. And an interesting artifact that comes with this expansion is the Silver Staff, which adds 1 additional spell upgrade to your creature upgrade banner. Also, you can remove the disabled tokens from all of your arcane spells. This is particularly powerful. Some spells, once you cast them, you place a disable marker on them, which means you cannot use them again until you figure out a way to re-enable them to remove the disabled token. In many cases, that just means that you're going to use the spell once, but thanks to the Silver Staff, that actually the elves can cast the same spells over and over again, which makes them particularly interesting. The Wraiths. Here's the Wraith. 2 miniatures of this creepy flying incorporeal undead creature come with the expansion. The Raitha can fly or move on the ground, as you can see here. The unnamed version, okay stats, nothing impressive in terms of range, it's with touch. Incorporeal, we'll talk about that later. The named version has incredibly better stats, also incredibly more expensive, still incorporeal, and can perform an additional 1 maneuver on the creature's dial, which makes it particularly annoying to catch. You can move around quite easily. And as I said, these creatures are incorporeal, and there is a play rate to remind you of all the advantages of being incorporeal. You can pause and read, it just means that it's gonna make it, this ability makes it very hard to hit a Wraith. And the Wraiths also have 2 very interesting unique abilities that only they can equip. Life Drain allows you to steal life points from the opponents, and Create Spawn. If you deliver the killing blow to an enemy creature, you may immediately discard the upgrade to place a new non-unique Wraith in the play area under your control. You are pretty much creating a new Wraith out of the life energy of the creature that you just destroyed. So that is pretty neat. Last small expansion, the Dwarf and Ballista. It doesn't come with any dwarves actually. You have to imagine that somebody is manning it. I would have liked to have somebody there in the miniature. It's a weapon that is not very movable, as you can imagine, as you can see here too, but boy does it hit hard, especially because that's pretty much all it does. It has a range of 4 and hits with particular violence, definitely not very agile, but okay at defending. In the named version, if you can think about it, there is a ballista there which is so good and famous that they named it, and it has its own identity. People like, oh, Calamity, Calamity, talk about it as if it were a creature. Calamity, the Dwarf and Ballista, hits very hard, still at very long range, and its armor is incredibly tough because it cannot be penetrated by non-critical damage, even if the damage from that attack has the penetrates armor ability. Doesn't do much else than surviving and hitting, but those 2 things this Dwarf and Ballista does well. Also, the Dwarf and Ballista comes with a bunch of upgrades that can only be attached to siege weapons and to dwarven weapons. So there are still many ways in which you can customize your ballista. Now we take a look at a very interesting type of unit, which is the troop. Troop expansions come with 6 miniatures, each with its own base and with its own little cardboard base, cardboard identification there, and they're placed in formations such as this one. They need to be all adjacent to one another. You need to assign the role of the point soldier to one of them, and you can place a marker by your point soldier. Suppose that this is my point soldier, I place a marker there. The rules to place the soldiers around the point soldier is that they have to be in a regular formation, they have to be flush to the point soldier, as you can see in this example. They cannot be more than 2 positions afar from the point soldier, such that if this was the point soldier, 1, 2, this is a legal position, but if this is the point soldier, this would not be a legal position because this guy is too far, more than 2 positions from the point soldier, and also no one can be before the point soldier, it has to be in the first line. The way these guys function is that when you move the point soldier first. Suppose we move the point soldier here, like this, and then you move the other soldiers around him, and you can change the configuration as long as the new configuration that you have created still follows the general rules and general rules and guidelines about legal formations for for troops. When a troop fights, it fights out of the arc of the point soldier. It launches a single attack using the total value of its primary weapon. And, well, when we look at the card, you will see a couple of interesting things. One is that stack of tiles there. The card, per se, looks like any other card in the game, any other identification card in the game, with the exception, yes, of this stack of tiles. Let's look at them closely. Do you see that right there under the Legion value? There is a small 6 there. It says Harper Legion 6. Well, this is probably easier. When you purchase the troop, you decide the number of actual miniatures that go in the troop. For example, here I wanted all 6. I could have just purchased less units in that troop. But I wanted to purchase those 6, so I got all of these 6 tiles, and I paid the cost on top of the stack of tiles. The tiles are numbered, and you place them in order. Suppose that I only wanted 4 elves, then I would have only placed tiles from 2 to 4, and only paid that cost. There are only tiles up to 2 because the quote-unquote tile number 1, the information for the troop when it only has 1 unit, is printed there. So that means that when you're attacking using your primary value of the tile on top of your stack. If I'm attacking with 6 elves, then I have a total value of 6. As the troop takes hits and loses miniatures, it also loses such tiles, so the values change. As you can see, it gets less attacks. But interestingly enough, when it is smaller, it attacks with less might, but it also becomes much more agile because it is a smaller troop, so it is harder to hit. Very interesting that you can choose the size of your troop and therefore how much you want to spend with it. Another interesting factor is that troops do not receive special damage when they receive critical damage. The damage cards for them are always taken face down. And also another thing is that damage that eliminates a unit and therefore eliminates a tile does not spill over to other units. So if an enemy has inflicted 3 points of damage against this unit, it destroys the top tile, but then that's it. So technically all of those hits are partially, not all of them, but partially some of those hits are wasted because it only took 1 point to remove a tile. So the fact that it is a mass of smaller targets instead of one large target definitely gives benefits to the troops. Let's have a look at other troops. There is the hard to pronounce Aarakocra troop, which is a flying troop. If you purchase that expansion, you will find 6 of these flying guys here. They fly with a good range of possible maneuvers. And as for their abilities, here we have the squadron, the generic squadron, good range, decent attacks. We're looking at the base version. It gets much better. It gets better attacks, and it gets, of course, more health points if you purchase more. But this is a case of a base attack of a base card. What happens if you only have one of them? But the Aarakocra, especially if they are individually taken, they're pretty strong. And as for the ability of the elite squadron of these flying bird people, then after performing a 4 maneuver, this elite squadron roll +1 attack die against every creature in for the remainder of the round. They get so much momentum that they get that extra attack. And they also have some special cards that belong to them only that you can equip to them to make them more interesting. Then we have the Hobgoblin troop. This is the standard miniature for the Hobgoblin troop. The basic maneuver card is this one, the air ground troop. And the generic version, especially if you're looking at the one version, is not too exciting, but even a single Hobgoblin hits fairly hard compared to other creatures when taken individually, compared to other troop units when taken individually. The range is pretty good when attacking with ranged weapons, not particularly agile. And the named version, the Zemtarim Warband, has this ability here that during a melee attack they may reroll one of their blank results. And here we have a card that can be equipped to evil troops, not specifically to hobgoblins, but this is the only evil troop in the game so far. So this is where this card would go if you decide to use it. The system is great, the system is superb once you add all the stuff, and mind you, the expense is not trivial. You do have to slaughter a piggy bank or two in order to do so, but once you invest the money in purchasing these units, then you have a phenomenal system that if I hadn't stopped playing Star Wars X-Wing a long time ago, I would have sold my stuff right now in order to purchase more of this stuff. The system is great. I love how three-dimensional the playing area feels, which is something that I really missed in Star Wars X-Wing. I like how you can have creatures that fly around and then they swoop down and trying to attack troops as the troops organize themselves. There are a bunch of other subtleties about troops that I didn't mention in my earlier part of the video, but I wanted to save some time. But then you had these troops that change shape, and sometimes you sacrifice some of those to gain a good position that you can use and to attack powerfully. You can choose a combination of a lot of small units all on the ground, but probably you want a mix of flying units and ground units, or you can have one or two big monsters. It's just incredible. What is also great, and I didn't mention earlier, is that these expansions do not just come with the miniature and the cards that I showed you. Of course, they also come with some extra tokens that you can use to keep track of things, but they also come with adventures. Each expansion comes with a little scenario that you can play, and many of these scenarios include specific terrain tiles which you can use for that specific scenario, but you can also use to design later your own scenarios. They are two-dimensional terrain tiles so that your units can fly and move over them, but they look pretty good and pretty sturdy. They are made on thick cardboard, and you have a good variety here. For example, the Wizard Elf comes with a scenario which depicts an assault against an elfin keep that the elf wizard is trying to protect. The Wyvern comes with a scenario about a cave where the Wyvern dwells, and the other party is coming to retrieve the body of a fallen comrade, but the Wyvern has huge advantages in moving in the cave because of how well the Wyvern knows the terrain. Lot of different things such as this one with terrain tiles that are great in that scenario and that you can use to create your own scenarios. And once you have a large number of units and a good variety of units, then of course you can simply play large battles. 150, 200 Legion points per player will allow you an astounding, mind-blowing variety of actions without even needing the adventures. If you just want to have two armies clashing and see which army is destroyed or surrenders first, you're gonna have an immense amount of fun. Actually, I would say that the adventures are smaller in scope than these scenarios and the large battles, so actually those can be interesting quote-unquote fillers. You can set them up and play them in much less time than a large battle, but probably once you have put together a decent collection, it is with the large battles that you will want to go most of the time, because they're just so phenomenally rewarding. The action is multi-layered, the interaction of the characters, all of the powers and the customizations adds an abysmal amount of variety and nuances without feeling overwhelming, without feeling too fiddly. I never felt that the game became cumbersome because I had to take into account 20 effects and how they interacted with this and that. There was just enough interaction to make things fun and to make things tactically engaging, so that I would want to place my black dragon in the position where the black dragon can attack at its best, and the green dragon Again, orienting the dragon where the dragon can do some good. I would want to make sure that the giant is facing the correct direction, and so taking the risk of pivoting, which is a bit dangerous because it makes it easier for the opponents to attack you. I love how the Harpies can work in combination. One of them can use her sonic attack that, if effective, incapacitates the opponent cannot attack, while the other Harpies are showering arrows on the opponent. Silver Dragon is just scary. Just reading the card, the stats, I almost peed myself. That's how scary that big beast is. Great variety, enormous amount of fun to be had. This is a system that I like very much, and I do believe that this is a system is going to stay, because I really loved the original implementation, the Star Wars, but I wasn't too excited about the theme, and I wasn't too excited about the 2D feel that I had there. Here you have a miniature game that gives you a sense, a feeling of tactical complexity without being complicated at all. I played this game with non-gamers, with people that had never played miniature games before, and they had no problem picking up the game, picking up the main concepts, and having a blast out of it. D&D Attack Wing is a system that I love. I recommend it highly enough. It scratches the fantasy itch, it scratches the miniature games itch, and it is simply unbelievably fulfilling. Unfortunately, if you really want to try the full experience, you will have to spend quite a bit of money, and this possibly is the only negative that I can think of about the system.